Hello, Hearties. Well, we've done it.
We made it.
We made it all the way through season 2 before the season 9 premiere. Woohoo! I am your co-host, Cammie the Hooked Hardy, and may I please introduce my lovely co-host, Sarah.
Hello.
All right. Well, I can't believe that we've come to the end. This is wow. We did it. But we left at such a heart-pounding moment. Elizabeth saying, "I don't think I'm brave enough to spend my life with someone as brave as you." I mean, yeesh, what a way to end an episode. But
Yeah.
But we're going
luckily it starts back up in the exact same moment.
Yes, but we're not going to that yet. We're going to save that for later. But I do have my Jack roughing it shirt on today, you know. But before we talk about that Mountie, let's talk about another Mountie that I still was not convinced.
Nobody was convinced.
No, the first time I watched it, I was not convinced.
This episode especially, there is some very sneaky behavior going on with Mountie Bill Avery. And wow, like season 2 was a tough year for Bill.
Season 2 was a very tough year for Bill. Well, and
poor guy.
we saw that the crook did cave. And if you'll pardon the pun, the crook did cave, and he drew him a map, and he said, "This is where you're going to find the rest of the money and the plates." And, you know, Bill puts on his tough guy act. "It better be, or you're going to be calling federal prison home for a long time." And then he goes and he digs and he finds it. And he pulls money out of his wallet to compare, and it does indeed look like real money.
Serial number.
Yeah.
And I want to bring up that scene. So with Bill out there digging in the dirt and looking around like somebody's watching me.
So suspicious.
So suspicious. And I really was drawn to the way they filmed that, like the camera angles and everything.
Yeah.
It looked so dramatic. And not that other episodes aren't dramatic, but they did a really good job of really, ramping that up and really pointing suspicion, because that looked like this was going a different direction.
Yeah, you never would have believed. You would have had good reason to believe that Norah should have left him. Yeah.
Right. You're kind of like on the fence here. Like, do we like Bill? Do we trust Bill?
I was so confused. This whole season, really. But so speaking of Norah, and speaking of suspicious behavior, okay, there are so many moments that I completely forgot about until I watched this again. And I put a big old "what" in the margins beside my notes here. But Norah being completely calm and sad even, and she says, "I'm sorry I lost my temper with Abigail." Lost your temper. Is that what we're calling it now? She made a spectacle of herself. That's what Abigail says. She walks up to Bill and she says, "Your wife made a spectacle in public. I have never been so embarrassed in all my life." I don't blame her. Yeah. I mean, but she humiliates her in front of everyone, yelling at the top of her lungs, will not listen to reason, will not go and discuss it somewhere private so they can get all the facts out. And then she says, "I'm sorry, I lost my temper." No, dear.
She clearly is not of sound mind. She she's clearly struggling there. Because that doesn't make sense. You know, she's trying to rationalize something that was not appropriate.
Well,
And the only way to rationalize it is by downplaying it. So that's what she was doing.
well, and I was so glad that Bill made her face reality. He kind of did that, snapped in her face, like, because she says, I guess I'm still not ready to let you go without a fight. And like, you want your son back, Norah. You know, that was kind of a wake up call. Like, you want your son back, Norah, not me. And then I have to admit, when I was watching this for the first time and he's stroking her face, I'm like, what are you doing? And I mean, I know that you guys were married, but what are you doing, Bill? Are you messing with her mind, or are you just trying to be kind and show some affection for all of the years that you've had together? You know, but he's saying it's time to let go. It's time to let him go. But yeah, he's stroking her cheek the whole time. Like, are you trying to make a move on her, or are you trying to comfort her? Because that's
no, I mean, I didn't get that impression, but I definitely, they have so much history, and I don't know that he ever truly loved her, but he cared for her a great deal. And they went through a very traumatic loss together and didn't really do it together. So I mean,
no, because she up and left.
And so yeah, I can see that they have a bond that they will always share. But I will say, Norah really, this was probably her best behaved episode.
You're absolutely right. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about that scene with Dottie at the very end, because that's
didn't it break your heart?
That's when Norah kind of goes, oh, the light bulb finally goes on. Oh, maybe there are people who have suffered like I have. Maybe I'm not the only one who has ever suffered this kind of traumatic loss. You know,
right. I will say I was a little surprised she had no idea that this had happened.
I was too.
Because that's why Bill went there in the first place. It was all over the newspapers in Hamilton. Yes, but it was all over the newspapers in Hamilton. We know this because of Clara.
Yeah. Well, the
trial. It was big news. Yeah, but it was big news.
Yeah.
And she knows Henry, who worked for the mine company.
Yeah, but he's going to leave that part out when snitching on Bill and telling her where.
Yes, but there's just so many connections. You'd think it would have come up.
No, apparently
but
not, because she is utterly shocked.
Yeah.
But, you know, we've talked about Dottie being Gowan's spy. You know, she's starting to become Gowan's spy. And so I was really glad to see Dottie do something right in this episode.
It was really the first episode, I think, where she had a truly like redeeming quality that was shining through. And you know, in season 1, she was just kind of that annoying wife of the mayor's wife, yeah, who was just trying to kind of make everything happen the way she wanted it to, with her son having the lead in the Founders Day play and everything. And so then and then in season 2, it's immediately moving into this role assisting Gowan. So this was I think the first scene where you were really like, oh, she's being sweet.
There are no motives.
There's no motives.
There's no ulterior motive. She is legitimately sitting down with Norah to try to make her feel better. But, you know, and so when Norah says, I don't think anyone can understand what it's like, and people around here understand better than you think. How could they? Well, maybe if you would just close your mouth and listen for a second, you know. Of course, that's not how Dottie put it, but a little over a year ago, there was an explosion. Wives lost their husbands, and she very specifically said, mothers lost their sons. And then you have more in common with the people of Hope Valley than you know. And here's where it gets interesting, because Norah tries to justify her behavior. It's hard to talk about. You know, she doesn't want to admit that she has this in common with the people of Hope Valley. She doesn't want to find common ground. She wants to, I think she's looking for a way to stay on the offensive. And so it's hard to talk about. And then Dottie very calmly replies, maybe it's time you try. And you see this, maybe I should. You know, we finally get it. It took an outsider. Abigail wasn't going to be able to convince her to see reason. Bill got through slightly. Bill got through slightly, telling her that she needed to let the past go and she needed to let Martin go. But it still wasn't fully there, because she was convinced that she was the only one in the world who felt that way. So having an outsider come in and tell it like it is, and tell her that that everybody in this town does know what she's going through, it kind of helped bring her to the light, if you will.
To be fair, Gowan was pushing her away from the light.
Let's go there, shall we?
He was doing everything in his power to amp up the drama between her and Bill and Abigail. And that's made very clear in the conversation between Gowan and Bill, which I found very interesting.
I completely forgot about this conversation. Yeah. It is so interesting going back and reliving this episode after so long and doing it with a critical eye. It's so different from binging through or watching it for the first time or whatever. But it was so interesting the way when Bill flags Henry down, he says, "You're the only one who would know how to find her." That's sneaky.
That's telling.
That's very telling. And that's suspicious. That is very suspicious. And here it goes again. You had your chance with Norah years ago and you didn't take it. And that look on Gowan's face is just chilling. I mean, that could make you shiver in August. That face. And he says, "No, I didn't. Do you know why?" Oh, what you take this.
Well, I mean, he says that he left Hamilton to work in Hope Valley because he was transferred. And then he brings up this whole case of racketeering against the mining company.
Yeah.
That Bill investigated.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously he's blaming Bill for being stuck in Hope Valley, where then all of this other drama came down. And now he's in trouble with the law and lost the mine and all of that.
So he lost his girl. He lost his job.
That's the thing. So I'm like, so he's with Norah and then Bill investigates him and then he loses his job. And then Bill takes Norah. I'm like, where did
I mean, if we're going with the theory that Henry is the drifter, he was in town for a job and then they had their fling and then he got transferred. And
just how ironic.
Yeah.
That Bill was in both of those places, you know, in that situation where he was investigating it, and then in the situation where he ended up with Norah. I mean, gosh, you can imagine how Henry would feel. Like, I would be suspicious of Bill at that point if I was Henry.
He stole my girl. He investigated me. I lost my job. Then I got
Now he's
transferred
here
to this,
again.
to this piece of dirt. And now I'm in trouble again with the law here because Bill even says that was my investigation. All charges were dropped. And then he immediately goes, there's always a scapegoat. And so, yeah, he is holding some very deep-seated resentment towards Bill. And then he brings brings Abigail into it.
Actually flat out admits that everything that's going on with Abigail, him giving her that list of things to fix at the cafe, all of that is because of Bill.
And then he doesn't just admit it, he challenges him because he says, I'm warning you. And then he just goes, take your best shot, Bill. And like, whoa. I mean, we've heard Gowan say a lot of things, but we've never heard him say anything like that. Not up to this point. And he says, take your best shot, Bill. I am a public official. You lay a hand on me, you'll spend quite some time in jail. You know, the rest of it, nah, blah, blah, that's political jabber. But when he says, take your best shot, Bill, I'm like, this is personal. This is personal.
Right.
So, all right.
And given where we're at in this episode, you're not necessarily rooting for Bill yet.
No, you're not.
So this is a very dramatic confrontation, and the viewer has no real, I mean, Henry was responsible for the mine disaster, so you don't like him, but
right.
I don't know if we like you either.
I don't know if we like you either. I mean, and I don't know if you were paying attention to the music at that point, but they were playing in minor keys and they were playing multiple keys on the piano together and they were going really high. So it sounded really eerie and dramatic. And I paid really close attention because I heard them and like, whoo, this just adds to the creepy shiver feeling. And it just, woo doo woo. It's, and you just don't know what to think. And you don't know how to feel at this point. You just come out not liking either of them. Yeah.
Right. So outcome of this conversation is someone sends a telegram to Mountie headquarters.
Let's see. Who could have done that? After we found out that Gowan was the one who told Norah where Bill was, there's very little room for doubt that Gowan sent that telegram to Houston.
Yeah.
To Superintendent Houston. Nuh-uh.
Yeah. Not to Houston. He didn't say, Houston, we have a problem.
Yeah. Wrong country, wrong era, wrong everything. Was a good
the line still works.
Oh, she's funny. We should call her the hilarious Hardy.
Anyway,
let's go to some hilarious moments.
Clearly then, well, no, let's finish this up real quick. Then Houston telegrams Jack.
Yeah. Houston telegrams Jack, and poor Jack. He's
the look on his face when he reads this.
And I mean, we'll talk about this in a minute, but for lack of a better analogy, he's like Moses coming off of Mount Sinai. He's just had this incredible experience where things are all clear and things are wonderful again. And then everything crashes down and he is brought to the lowest part concerning Bill.
Who's a mentor to him.
His mentor. and he has to arrest him. And he doesn't know what to think. He doesn't know who to believe. So, and he can't believe, I mean, the way that he says, you think one of our own is dirty?
I'm sorry. He's questioning, like he thinks it's crazy that Bill thinks one of their own is dirty. But the alternative to that is that Bill is dirty. So I feel like in that moment, that shouldn't have been the bigger surprise. Someone else is dirty.
I think that he's mad because he feels that Bill crossed the line. And
I think he wishes
Bill had, I think that's what it is.
He wishes Bill had confided in him.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, without further evidence, he has to take his gun and he has to arrest him.
So here's my question. Okay. And I won't go too far into it because we haven't got to the next episode in season 3 yet, where we actually find out what is going on.
You're going to have to pretend like you don't know, Sarah.
But clearly, at some point in time, Jack has to weigh what Bill's telling him. Do you think he is trusting Bill yet and arresting him because he has to, and he knows that's the only way to get to the truth? Or do you think he still thinks that Bill might be guilty at this moment?
I think at this moment, he's thinking that Bill is guilty because I think because of his incredibly suspicious behavior.
Which has been very suspicious.
Which is completely legitimate. It's a completely legitimate reason because he has been sneaking around the whole season. He won't tell Jack a thing. And he's been snippy with Jack so many times. So, I think that at this moment, Jack thinks he's guilty. That's what I think.
Okay.
What about you?
That's fair. I don't remember all the conversations in the next episode that lead up to finding out all the backstory, but I think he's at least questioning it. Okay. But regardless, he knows that there's no other course of action right now. Even if Bill is innocent and what he's saying is true, letting him go doesn't solve anything. It just raises more questions. Yeah. And if there is somebody else dirty, they're going to be put on edge if Jack is resisting orders as well. So he knows if Bill is telling the truth, he still has to do this. But I think you're right. I think he's still kind of the opinion that nothing makes sense. And if you're following the evidence, it's all pointing at Bill right now.
It is. It's all pointing at him. Whew.
And last question.
Okay.
I know I missed one review here of this season, but I don't recall missing this. So when Norah is walking with Gowan and they see the arrest and she looks at Gowan and Norah says, "Is Jack arresting Bill?" Has she had a single scene with Daniel Lissing? Does she know who Jack is? Why is she calling him by his first name?
I think that you're watching a different version. Because that's not
in that not in yours?
That's not in my episode. No, this is good. This is good.
Okay, so I'm watching. That's a great question because I noticed also because I'm watching on Hallmark Movies now that they have all of the seasons available.
And I'm watching from DVDs. Okay,
do you have the class picture scene?
No.
Because that's the infamous scene that was cut when it went to Amazon. So I haven't seen the class picture scene since it originally aired on TV. And it was in this time watching on Hallmark Movies now, it was there. And I was so excited to see
I've never seen the class picture.
Oh, you have. Okay. So Hallmark Movies now has it. And it was so exciting to watch because I hadn't seen it since 2015, right? Is when season 2 was on.
Yeah.
So yes, very exciting. So apparently Hallmark Movies Now episodes do have all of the
Added some
cut
scenes.
scenes. They have the scenes that have been edited out of other versions. So there is a scene where Jack is leading Bill into the jail in handcuffs. Okay. And Norah and Gowan are walking down the street and they see this, and she looks at Gowan and she says, "Is Jack arresting Bill?" And I was just thrown off because I was like, why is she calling Jack by his first name? Why? She hasn't had any interactions with him.
So this is the first time I'm hearing about this scene, but my guess, if Bill was Jack's mentor, she has to have known him from previous years.
Okay. That's fair.
Yeah. Because it was only
explored that more.
Because it was only 2 years ago that she ran off because Martin died. And Jack would have been in the academy.
You would think there would have been
mentored by Bill before that.
I would have liked to have seen maybe a scene somewhere between Jack and Bill about Norah or Martin or something. And then when you add that in also, like Jack knew that Bill and Abigail were starting to become a thing. And so if he knew about the ex-wife/wife and son and drama, you'd think that would have come up. So it's just, to me, this felt like a little bit of where they were weaving the storylines together where a few things didn't fit perfectly. Fishy. Well, and like just where they just missed maybe. Yeah. But it was just a little surprising shot for me, but I'm glad I said something because we have now identified there are some other scenes. And now I feel like I need to rewatch all the seasons on Hallmark Movies Now so I can see if there's other things that I've been missing when I rewatch it on Amazon.
Apparently you do. And every time you come to a new scene, you need to call me and we need to video chat. So that
this is the scene.
All right, let's go to the newfound Lucy and Ricky of Hope Valley. Even though they're not there yet, they are the hilarious, fun, lighthearted, but still romantically attached part of Hope Valley. And their interactions are, even though there's drama, quote unquote, I really feel that Lee and Rosemary's drama is so much more lighthearted, and we can see it for what it's worth, and we can laugh at it a lot more easily than we can with drama between Jack and Elizabeth.
Yeah, definitely.
So first we've got Rosemary in the Mercantile. And Molly comes in. You know that Lee and I have been courting. Yes, I think everyone knows that.
Ned's side eye here. Oh my gosh. Oh, Ned.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
And
so great.
And I love how Rosemary is trying to be gracious.
She really is.
She is. She's trying. Well, that is very sweet. I think it is just fine, you know. And then Molly kind of pushes it, and then she gets snippy. Like, if Lee wants to court you, that's really none of my business. Okay, did that? You've made your points, you know.
Yes.
And the jewelry.
The jewelry.
Yes. How soon is it appropriate to accept jewelry from a suitor, or is it never too soon? I'm like, oh man, Molly's laying it on thick. You know?
And keep in mind, most, like, if you're watching this for the first time, You don't know she's laying it on thick.
No, you don't. You don't know she's laying it on thick until the end of the episode. But
she did. She played her part perfectly.
Perfectly. Lee even says it worked like a charm. And it's so funny. Well, first let's go to the
Rosemary and Abigail.
Yes, Abigail and Rosemary. Abigail's face the whole time,
the whole conversation, and after Rosemary leaves, she just and
I mean, you could tell that she's trying so hard not to laugh, but she's also very concerned, and she's trying to help Rosemary the way she helps Elizabeth, and it doesn't work quite the same way, but it still works, you know. You've had such success with your column. Why don't you try writing yourself a letter? Which I thought was brilliant. I thought that was it's a great idea. Yeah, to get her out of her head and to just have
look at it from an outside perspective.
Yeah. And
would you tell someone else?
You could start with "Dear Jealous. I think hurt and confused is more appropriate."
Are you sure about that?
Oh my goodness. And then you gotta love "Dear Hurt and Confused. Oh, you poor thing." Like, oh gosh. And Abigail tries to get up, and then she's not done.
Yeah.
Okay.
Not yet.
Not yet. And once again, she gets the outside perspective, but she goes about it through a very strange avenue. If you have feelings for this man, you must let him know. How else can he see the poor decision that he's made? Oh dear.
Oh dear, poor Lee.
Poor hurt and confused not.
Right. So moving to the infamous scene between Lee and Rosemary with the giant coat, which again, for those of you who don't know, is because Pascal was pregnant at the time. This episode was brilliantly filmed to avoid that. From the big coat to the lovely floral bouquet she's holding later, right in front of her.
Right in front of her. And you don't suspect a thing. It doesn't look strategically placed.
I mean, I definitely thought, it's a really big coat. Why is she wearing such a big coat? Like I do remember thinking that it was an abnormally large coat. Yeah. But other than that,
I was talking about the flowers though.
Well, yeah, no, that was just something I noticed. But that scene, I don't think I noticed originally, or even the first few times I've seen this, how brilliant Cavan is in this scene.
I tell you,
a whole different perspective this time because I know his character so much better.
Yeah.
Throughout the rest of the seasons. And just seeing him watch her try to find her way through this conversation and try to navigate it. And his eyes, you could just see his happiness. And
his triumph.
It
worked.
And here's what I loved is he did a great job of balancing, of letting her sweat it out a bit, letting her falter and find her way, because he knows she has to say it. Like that's meaningful for her to get it out.
Yeah, he's not going to say it for her.
And he knows that she needs to do that, right? Yeah. And so and also that she needs to be forced to do that.
Yes.
Like he just knows her so well. But when she got really emotional and he takes her hands and says, it's okay, he knows. It's like, okay, now I've taken it as far as I should take it. And now we're done. We've said what we need to say. We don't need to make her uncomfortable.
Give the poor
No
girl
reason.
a little relief.
Give her a little relief. And she goes, "You do?" And he says, "Of course I do." And that line, I was just like, of course he does.
Of course he does.
He's perfect for her. He knows her so well.
Yeah. And I love when they were talking about Jack, because we finally get to hear Rosemary admit that she made a mistake.
Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't want to make the same mistake twice. I rush into things, you think, you know?
A little bit.
No. And then she says, I hurt someone I really cared about. And, you know, he looked a little downcast, Jack, you know, like we're talking about another man here. And then I love how he says, Jack seems to have recovered. Like, he's fine.
That's a great
help you be
point.
fine too.
But I like her point that then she counters with, I want to make sure I get it right this time.
Yes, that was it. And
that's beautiful.
It is. It is so beautiful. And
it's not about Jack.
No.
When she messed it up with Jack, it's about her and how she messed it up with Jack. She wants to get it right, and she put a lot of pressure on this because she knows how important Lee is.
Yeah. The moment Molly Sullivan comes up, you could see Kevin laughing behind his hand.
There's just one little problem.
Well, I really don't want to have to hurt her feelings. I mean, you expect the man to break any second, but he doesn't. You know, and now
so good.
And watching it, knowing his character, knowing the situation, knowing what was going on, and that it was all a ploy, you know, it makes it so much better. It makes it so much more fun to watch, because he is smiling all the while, and he almost can't keep a straight face, but he does it for the sake of the conversation. And he says, maybe I can let her down gently. Yes. When? Well, obviously, Rosemary has now made up her mind, and she wants it now.
Yeah.
And then in the mercantile, okay, you're talking about this incredible scene with Kevin. I couldn't get over the mercantile scene with Kevin's face. I was glued to Kevin's face. He looked at her so adoringly, and he couldn't take his eyes off of her. And, you know, and what does Ned say? He said, Mr. Coulter, you have excellent taste. And Lee says, in flowers or women, Ned? And he's not even talking to Ned. He's looking straight at Rosemary, and he's just smiling. And he is the happiest man in the world right now. And nothing is going to keep him from feeling that way. And then Rosemary, Molly, I hope there are no hard feelings. And Molly's complete flabbergasted about what? Oh,
that.
That's your first real clue. You know,
right. You're like, wow, she got over that quickly.
Over that fast.
and quite honestly, like the way that Lee was so gushy about Rosemary right there in front of her, you're kind of like, wow, just like have some respect.
That's harsh, dude. You know?
Right there, you just dumped her.
And then he goes and whispers, thank you. I think it worked like a charm. And Molly instantly comes in with, I knew it would. She's crazy about you.
Oh my gosh.
Was this Molly's idea?
I kind of wonder, like, years ago, seeing that scene, that was like, I mean, this episode was written very well. for surprises anyway. And you were just sitting there flabbergasted. This was fake? Oh my gosh.
In a way, I felt bad for Molly because she's one of the widows. I thought, oh, Molly's getting dumped and so soon after her husband died, and Abigail's already having trouble with men after her husband died. And so I felt kind of bad, but Molly was so easy about the whole thing. And there were obviously no feelings for Lee beyond the play acting. And so that made you feel better about it. You're like, okay. He didn't play her. They played Rosemary together. And it's what Rosemary needed. She needed that green-eyed monster to make her realize just what a gem Lee is, because all of us sitting at home are watching and saying, will you wake up? The man's perfect for you. He's the only one who will deal with you.
There's that.
There's that.
Process of elimination. You should probably go with him. No one else will stick around.
No takers. Okay, speaking of Abigail, Abigail is having some very hard luck in the mail department, and I'm not talking about the post office. God.
I mean, yes and no. She's having some great moments.
She's having some great moments, but both men have very suspicious characters.
Okay, yes, very. She gets to go fishing. You hear some great backstory on Abigail's childhood, which
that was priceless. That backstory.
I feel like that's the only time we kind of hear that kind of story from her.
Yeah.
As a child, clearly she's got multiple brothers. Sounds like she might be the only girl.
It does.
And
I know how she feels.
Very strict family. Girls aren't allowed to go fishing.
No.
But she sneaks off anyway and goes fishing. So she knows how to do it. She's good at it. And she is good at the flirting game too.
She's good at that kind of fishing.
You get some more fishing analogies with Charles and Jack in here.
Oh my word. I love the bet. I love the bet with the can of worms. I wouldn't insult the fish by offering artificial food. And then she just giggles. You haven't seen Abigail giggle like that, except with Elizabeth. And it's mostly when they're talking about Jack and her, but you don't see Abigail really giggle like that very often. And so it was really fun to see that lighthearted and telling Frank to make a bet and no money, just your pride, and then it all had to be broken because Frank so sweetly offered to make fish, and the secret was Mrs. Brewery owner beer.
See, there have always been references to drinking on this show. I don't feel like it's increased since we've had a saloon owner as a main character.
No, I mean, if anything, Lucas has brought some class to the place, so it's like owning a fine restaurant instead of owning a bar. So
I would agree with that as well.
When Tom was running things, it was a saloon. So.
Right. And that was, that first season, that saloon was pretty rough.
Woo, it was really rough. So we find out that Frank wasn't always on the right side of the law. And the reason why he almost died, he told Abigail he almost died, and that's when he kind of devoted his life to God. And the reason he almost died is because he was shot while not quite working on the other side of the law, on the right side of the law.
Right side of law.
So, and you see
That was a
how
rough conversation. That was a
you
rough
see how
conversation.
quickly Abigail is put off. And I can just hear her brain going, no, 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 not again.
Right.
Oh.
And this is a tough one, because what I loved about the writing in this episode is from the earliest scene with Frank, he had this fabulous line. People are rarely as good or bad as we think they are. They're usually a combination of both. And
pastors?
Even though they were talking about Gowan in that moment, it was clear to me rewatching this that as he was saying it, he was thinking of himself.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Now we come to my favorite part. These are my favorite scenes in season 2, because you will appreciate this, Sarah, because these scenes are what make everything that they went through in all of season 2 worth it.
Yes.
100%
agree. Yeah.
Oh, good.
Well, I mean, they're not the only ones. They're not the only scenes. Yes.
No, but they make all of the drama that happened in Hamilton, because all of the stuff that happened in Hope Valley was remnants of Hamilton. There was no drama in Hope Valley as far as Jack and Elizabeth were concerned. And
except just working through what had already happened.
Right, yes. Except working through, it was remnants of the Hamilton drama. And so, yeah, just to start right where you left off, and you have Jack saying, "Why are you doing this?" Oh gosh, I just wanted to cry, because
he was so hurt.
He's so hurt. And okay, if you hadn't guessed, Jack is my favorite character on When Calls the Heart. Shocking revelation, I know. But so watching this happen to my favorite character after everything I had already watched him go through, I'm just like, oh, it was heartbreaking. And then doing what? Pushing us apart. And he's trying so hard not to cry. And and then she's saying, "I'm just trying to be honest with you."
And let's be really fair. This is kind of the first time that she's really being honest. So
yeah, this is the first time that she has completely opened up, and she has said, "I am scared. I'm scared of losing you. I'm afraid you're going to die." And
yes. And you gotta love timing.
Gotta love timing.
Oh,
because Rip. They go to try to find Rip, because but first, before they go find Rip, just the way he says, "All I know is what I feel for you. Question is, what do you feel for me?" I'm just like, oh, tell him you love him, please. But I tell you, the first time I was watching it, I'm just sitting there going, I remember as clear as if it were yesterday what my feelings were when I watched this episode for the first time. This is where hero Jack comes in. Oh man, you hear the scream, you hear the crash, you hear him shout with great fear and concern, "Elizabeth," and runs. She's laying on the ground with a beam across her, and she says, "It just knocked me down." And so he pulls her out, and then we find out something's wrong with her knee. And so he says, okay, just sit here for a second. And then he looks up and he pushes her down, rolls her out of the way, and I'm just sitting on my couch going, oh. And then,
Oh
okay.
goodness.
Oh my
The
gosh.
role was so dramatic. And I don't know if there's been much information about this, but like I was
never
trying to
heard
watch.
any.
It looks like them. It doesn't look like stunt doubles or
it does
anything.
not look like stunt doubles. No. Yeah.
Which is just adds more excitement to it that they were, filming that themselves.
It totally does. And then you have him practically lying next to her, looking down at her. I thought he was going to kiss her right then and there for a split second. Just, we made it through. But it was the wrong time. But the fact that their faces are so close together, they just went through this incredibly dramatic and terrifying experience of almost being
squashed
to death. And then he's saying, "Are you all right?" And she's, "I'm fine." It's just, woo! It's getting a little warm in that cold cave,
Right? A little bit, heating up.
Oxygen tank, please. Clean up on aisle C. Oh goodness. Oh my goodness. Anyway, so one thing that I really noticed is he's in rescuer mode.
Very protective.
Yeah, well,
very protective.
Not just protective, but he doesn't even give a second thought to the idea of looking at the knee. He just says, right now, we need to get back to the fire so I can look at that knee. Here, hold this. And then, one of my favorite shots in the whole episode, in the whole season. This picture was the background on my old laptop. He lifts her, to quote Sense and Sensibility, as if she weighed no more than a dried leaf. He just lifts her up and carries her back to the fire. And I'm just like, you could knock me over with a feather right now.
And while that alone is amazing, the banter that's happening at the same time just elevates that scene. I love that they're in the middle of this huge fight. And she's still like, I don't need any help. And he's like, we'll argue about that later.
We'll argue about that later. And he's looking at her so adoringly while he says
we're doing this. And it shows that he is understanding where she's coming from and that she needs to be processing all of this the way she is. Like he's come so far just from moments earlier when he was like, why are you doing this? Like he already gets why she's doing it.
Yeah.
It's that he's so much growth in those few minutes.
Well, and here's what I love about this whole scene. This happenstance, this traumatic experience that could have seriously injured or even killed one or both of them, it made them realize how petty their behavior was on both sides.
Yes.
On both sides. It changed them, and it changed the way they interacted with each other after that. And I loved that. I loved how they let that circumstance show them that they really did care about each other, that they really didn't want to separate, and that their behavior was petty. And why waste time being petty when you can be together? And that's what that experience did for them, and they let it.
Yes.
So I don't know if I can get through this scene, but I'm going to try. He does his signature line, "May I?" Usually it's, can I help you with this box? Or may I have this dance? Or may I show you this? No, it's, may I have a look at your knee? Oh,
You
please.
okay?
He barely touches it, and then very stern, seems fine to me. And then it's the other knee. And the sheer panic.
He was mortified in this scene. Like, he was so uncomfortable, which is so adorable.
It's so precious. Just the, oh, sorry.
Let's try this again.
For months after, my husband and I were messing around with each other in every way we could, saying, it's the other knee, it's the other knee. We did it for so long after seeing this scene. But whew, now we're really close to the fire. Because just that utter terror in his eyes. Oh, I'm touching your knee. Oh no, I'm touching the other knee. Oh my.
It's what they needed to get over that, and then move into an actual real conversation again.
Yeah. And and she says it. It's crazy. I spend so much time worrying about what could happen to you, and look what happened to me.
I loved her laugh when she started.
Yeah, she's just laughing at
she's
herself.
She's almost like, oh my gosh, I'm really crazy.
She can recognize it. Norah can't. So,
well, there's that.
Yes.
Big difference.
But I love what Jack says. Well, you just proved that being a school teacher is just as dangerous as being a Mountie. Apparently I did. I just wish you would have picked a less dramatic way to prove your point.
Jack always has the best sense of humor.
It's best.
It's understated.
It is.
I think that's why it's so perfect, because you don't expect it.
Okay, then what does he hear? I hear that
the best part about arguing is making up.
And she goes into full flirtation mode. Who cares about that bruised knee? I've heard that too. Okay.
And timing number 2.
When I watched this, one of the times I watched this, I was watching it with subtitles, and I had to laugh so hard because it said frustrated sigh.
That's a pretty good way to put it.
Rip, I was about to kiss her, dang it. Oh my gosh. Oh, this is so funny. Oh, I die every time I watch it. I go between my heart pounding out of my chest and me dying laughing, Okay. Yeah. So, whew, I'm okay.
He gets ripped.
He gets ripped. Yes, he does get ripped.
He gets ripped. They come back. lovely reunion scene. Everybody's happy to see Rip.
I love how she says, Rip, you naughty boy. And oh, this, what she says right here, it sums up. I've said this. It sums up my entire feeling for this whole season.
Right?
Can we stay here just a little while longer? And I love how he goes, yeah. What for? He's cool. Everything's good.
Everything's totally over in his mind. Like
Yeah.
we've done this.
But it's so profound how she says in
profound.
Here, you want to say it?
In here, it's just the two of us, and out there, everything is complicated.
But whatever challenges we have to face out there, I believe we can take them on together.
Really feels like we've been given a second chance today.
And I don't want to waste it, especially since I've seen your knees. You've seen the woman's knees. There's no going back now.
Clearly. End game.
That's the point of no return. But I don't know if I can get past this. I love you, Elizabeth Thatcher. Oh, I said this in the Marcus interview. That moment would not have meant nearly as much, and it would not have been nearly as heart-wrenching, as tear-jerking, as sigh-inducing. It wouldn't have been any of those things without watching them go through what they did in season 2.
Agreed.
And you think back to all of that, and you know that all of those things are playing through his mind as he touches his hand to her face and he looks her straight in the eye and says, I love you, Elizabeth Thatcher.
It's almost, to me, it's almost got a deeper meaning that he says her last name.
Oh, I know.
Because it's like he's embracing that part of her that he's kind of pushed away from. The Thatcher name really signifies that upper class, the money, the wealth, all of that. And to me, that was really telling.
Oh, the fact that he put the last name in there was up here for me on so many levels, and that's one of them.
Yeah.
And when someone tells you that they love you for the first time and they include your entire name, it just has a deeper significance, and that's on the surface level. Go beyond that to, yes, the Thatcher name means wealth and money and the snobbery
and things that have been keeping them apart.
Yeah. And he is embracing the whole person of her, and he says, I love you, Elizabeth Thatcher. Oh gosh, I'm gonna cry. I feel these scenes very deeply.
Now, I know you do. Did it ruin it for you that she said, I love you too? I know that's a pet peeve of yours. When they just say,
we haven't talked about this in a long time on here, but this is totally a personal thing, Hearties. This is totally personal. I think when someone says in this kind of situation, I love you too, it sounds like a bit of a cop-out. It sounds like it's copying, like, yeah, I love you too. And that's it. So the fact that she said, I love you too, dampened it maybe a tenth, but I was on such an emotional high from everything else in that scene that very little could ruin it. I did
fit
not.
here. I totally like, it's something I look for now because you and I have talked about it so many times. So,
Yes.
so it is something I look for in an I love you scene. But in this instance, it seemed to flow very nicely. It didn't, even because of the significance of him using her name, it didn't make sense for her to use his name back.
No.
I feel like that wouldn't have played the same. Like the significance was that he was embracing that part of her that he had not embraced
Yeah.
before. And so I felt like for her to say anything else would have potentially taken away from that significance. And so I felt like this flowed pretty well for the way that they set it up.
I probably would have preferred that she just say I love you, but I choose not to let it bother me because the rest of the scene is fantastic. And
The whole rest of that scene, the next 2 seconds were amazing.
well, yeah, because that was one heck of a kiss, and Daniel Lissing has got the jaw, baby. He has got the jaw. So jaw check.
I have to say the next scene is actually my favorite. I do prefer the next scene over that scene. Nothing against that scene. If I had to rate them, the next one's just slightly above.
You take the scene. The reason why I like this scene is because it solidifies everything that happened in the mine. They're in the outside world, and it just it solidifies everything. That wasn't their imagination, that kind of thing. So
yeah, in the real world. They're back at where she lives. So they go home. Abigail does not want to leave her. She is very protective. She's also probably a little bit looking for an out now that she's finagled her way into fishing with Frank. So she's probably a little bit nervous about doing that. But I love the look on her face when Jack offers to stay and Abigail's like,
because they've got fire going back and forth between their eyes, and and Abigail's trying to stay out of the line of fire.
she does this like kind of lean back, yeah, where she's like, oh, I can't get in the middle of this.
I'm leaving.
And she doesn't even look back, even with like a smile or a look. She's just, I'm out of here.
So on
privacy. They need some alone time, which is hilarious because they just got back from alone time.
From a lot of alone
time. But there's just this other element. And like you said, it's real.
Yeah.
They're in their home. She's in her home. They're in a public place, even though they're not. Yeah. And it's just it's a whole other ballgame. And they are happy and flirty and
adorable.
Yes. Incredibly adorable. I didn't write down all the lines because you don't need all the lines. The only line you need.
I got it right here. I didn't write them down because I know them.
Well, there's that, but you only need one line. You just need that last line. We don't need to talk.
And that kiss on the couch, I love how, because Jack is a little unsure of what to do. They're alone in her home, and he's trying to convince her to go and get some rest, but he's not the least bit disappointed that she just wants to sit on the couch with him. And I love how she says, well, if you wanted to hand me that blanket, I won't object. With the flirty toss of her hair,
with the exact hair flip. Yeah,
I know. And he just throws his hat aside and puts the blanket over, and then he's not quite sure what to do. And he kind of gives that.
He's got this nervous giggle.
Yes, it's so precious. And he's rubbing her.
So precious.
And then he's rubbing her arm. Oh God. I did it. I got you being giggly. I did it. You're being giggly and girly with me. Yes, I get it. but and then, he's trying to still keep it kind of light, because she says, I don't feel like now I don't feel like resting. And he says, that's because you're still talking. Which is just funny. And then, well, we don't have to talk. And oh man.
Yeah.
You see the look on his face. It's almost relief that it's all real. And I don't mind if I do.
Yeah.
And
if you insist.
Yeah, if you insist. That kiss. Oh, wow. That kiss. The lighting is better in the mine because you've got the romantic firelight, but the angle on the couch kiss is woof. It's great. It's fantastic. I'm a big fan of that camera angle where it, shows off the jawline very well. Now we have to go to the sad part.
Moving on from there, we get Abigail and her having a nice conversation, sharing how things have been going.
Yeah.
Very happy. Somehow this triggers Abigail's memory that she has a letter for Elizabeth. I'm not really sure how she made the connection between, you told your boyfriend you love him. Oh, you got a letter from Charles. Now, I wish that I had seen this episode more recently when we talked to Marcus, because I'm curious. I'm wondering if all of Marcus's scenes were added in this episode.
I know.
Or if just that last scene was added, because he talks about how they called him back to do the finale.
Yeah.
Unexpectedly, and it wasn't in the original script to have him in physically in the episode. So I'm wondering if the letter was all that was meant to be there.
That's a good point. And his conversation with Viola,
that could have been added as well.
I don't know if it was added or if it was moved from another episode, because Viola says, you'll be happy to know she's safely back in Hope Valley playing teacher in the Wild West. Did Viola not know that Charles went to Hope Valley? Because she doesn't make any...
No, but it could have been after that was in between the first and second time, wasn't it?
I don't know.
When?
Yeah. No, Charles...
It was before...
Yeah, Charles came to Hope Valley between the two times they went.
Between the two times. So she means the second time. Viola means she's back in Hope Valley the second time.
Maybe. But the more I thought it, man, it's hard doing these week by week because now I don't remember.
Which week it was, yeah.
Yeah, but the big thing is that even if she didn't know that Charles wasn't in Hope Valley, that would totally fit her character, because Viola does not bother with business. She's only interested in society and her place. True. And now her upcoming wedding. And so it would, even if she hadn't known, it would have fit perfectly. So
right. No, totally. What I found interesting, and the reason that I brought that up though, is because the letter makes zero sense to me. It just seems so random. In that moment, it's a deterrent, and it dampens the mood of Abigail and Elizabeth, dishing about their relationship.
Yeah.
But it really is very bizarre that Charles would have this conversation with Viola, send her a letter, which takes a long time. So had he already sent it, he didn't seem like he was interested in still pursuing her when he had the conversation with Viola, and she's urging him to speak his mind. But letters take quite a while. So then you're like, when is the timeline here? No, so then she gets a letter, but then immediately something else happen to Charles that we'll talk about in a minute.
Well,
so I was
really,
very confused by
yeah,
the letter.
really quickly.
So I'm wondering if that was the original plan, was just to have this letter floating there to, I'm wondering what they were going to end on in season 2
Good
before
idea.
they had,
Yeah, good question.
How much did they add and how much was changed?
Yeah. While we're in Hamilton, let's talk about Julie for a second. She's she's determined to not forget about Tom. And at the very end, she has run off and she's never coming back. Now, because we have a little bit of foreknowledge, I'm going to go ahead and put this spoiler in. Nothing happens.
Well,
there's this huge
we don't know what happens.
Well,
something happened, but they never tell us what.
Yeah, there's this huge cliffhanger concerning Julie at the end of season 2, and it is not addressed at all in season 3, and we don't hear anything about Julie until season 5. So,
to be clear, we don't know if it technically had anything to do with Tom. Everybody assumes she was talking to Tom on the telephone.
Maybe
when she's saying, I mean, a lot of people have just made reference, oh, she's running off with Tom. We honestly don't know.
We don't know.
They never said his name. They never show him. We don't know. And they allude to the fact, so later, when Tom and Julie see each other in a future season, they allude to that there was more to their story after we saw them together in season 2, but we don't know that. We don't know what, and we don't know how much, and we don't know if it had anything to do with when she was supposedly running away at the end of season 2.
Yeah, none of that.
What I wanted to bring up is, I know I'm always defending all the Hamilton people.
Oh dear.
But I will say the scene with Julie arguing with her parents, nobody is in a good light in this scene. It's really an unfortunate scene. Everybody really looks badly.
Yeah.
You really don't, there's nothing for me to defend. I'm sorry, Hamilton people. You have not given me anything to work with in this scene.
Oh man.
That scene was very unfortunate. The only thing I could maybe say is, as a parent, like, Julie was being extremely unreasonable.
Oh, she was being an obstinate little.
She was pushing, and she was pushing for the sake of pushing, and so I can't blame them for being upset.
No.
However, we know that they just that was a bad scene for Hamilton people. I'm sorry.
Okay, so let's go back to Hope Valley, even though it involves Hamilton people.
While we're on the subject of Julie running away.
Yeah.
My daughter brought this up. She was passing through the room while this scene was on, and I didn't even catch it. Viola walks into the room with the note that says that Julie has run off.
Yeah.
She holds this note up and she says it's Julie or something like that. Mr. Thatcher says, "What's up?" And I had to replay it. She's like, "Did he just say what's up?" This is what my daughter says. And I'm like, no, he wouldn't have said that. So I replay it. He very clearly said, "What's up?"
I did not.
That's a very odd phrase. That's a very odd phrase for him to say.
I didn't even realize. Okay, so let's go back to Hope Valley. All right. Blue suit or green suit?
Can we address this, please? That suit is not green.
It is kind of.
It is not green. That is gray. That is a gray suit.
It had a tint of green.
Oh.
You're missing the point. Green suit, blue suit. What do you pick?
Well, I would pick blue because he looks dashing in the blue. But it's not a green suit. And I love green, so I'm going to adamantly It was
It
not
is
a
her
green
favorite.
It was not a green suit.
Okay, well, I'm
Rip,
going to
Rip
adamantly.
Rip made a very good choice convincing him not to wear it because it was clearly not green. And so just have to leave it at that.
Well, I thought he looked perfectly dashing in that green suit. And so I voted the green suit. Plus, if he had stuck with the green suit and not changed, then we wouldn't have had the time problem.
Okay, well, I'll give you that.
Thank you.
He should have been wearing the blue one to begin with.
Okay, fine. But I like the green one better. I do. I actually do like it. Okay, fine. Forget the color. I like the other suit.
So, super side note, I will not go into it deeply, but my dad is colorblind and we owned a gray van and he registered it with the state as green.
Oh my.
And it was this ongoing joke in my family for years because he literally thought our van was green.
Okay, so moving on from green and gray and blue.
Sorry, Dad.
Elizabeth is back in her prime. She's teaching school. She's passing out graded papers. She dismisses them with the cowbell.
The day before, he comes by and takes a class picture. Yay, Jack, in the scene that's deleted everywhere. If anybody's seen this scene, it's amazing.
I want to see this now.
It's amazing. He's got the camera that he took their picture in season 1 with, and he comes by and he just surprises them. And he just she's releasing school and he calls kids back who are running home from school. He's like, wait, come back. They're like, oh,
what a guy.
Go back to school. Right. And so then he gets them all to line up on the stairs and takes their picture. And it's so great. You've got Emily, you've got
Miles,
Rosaline is in it. It's probably the last time we visually see her. And it's so sweet. And he takes their class photo. And then he asks Elizabeth to come riding with him tomorrow after school.
Oh man.
He makes a big deal. I came here right now to ask you if you would go riding with me tomorrow after school. It's a big, we're setting up a time when we're going to be together. It's quite clear there's something happening. And we do see Jack going to the mercantile already and picking
asking
something
if
up.
a package had arrived
And asking to keep something secret. And Ned is very excited. Ned has got to be the most informed man in town.
He is.
To know everything that's happening. He gets all the telegrams. He brings the mail. He gets everything that's ordered for people. He knows what everything is.
He knows everything.
Wow.
He's such a quiet man that you would never think.
I feel like there is so much opportunity to explore Ned's, what Ned knows. I feel like there should be a whole spinoff.
Maybe we'll see more of that in season 9. That's a really good idea. So Elizabeth dismisses school with the bell. You hear a knock at the door and you just go, and then you see a beautiful ring box come open and it's this gorgeous ring. And I even wrote down in my notes the way I had watched it the first time. And I went, oh, why does she look? No!
Exactly. It was the biggest bombshell.
It was huge.
And I love the way Marcus described this scene and talking about how they filmed it and the camera angles and how powerful it was.
That was a beautiful last shot.
It was a beautiful last shot. And I love that somebody who was a supporting actor who was disappointed about this scene because he knew that it was sealing his character's fate to not be probably on this show ever again.
Right.
But he even was talking about the brilliance of the way they filmed the scene.
Yeah.
And to me, that just speaks volumes to how much effort they put into this show and having the right camera angles and the right music and the right, all of it fits together beautifully to where everyone is in awe of the way it comes together.
Do you know what just occurred to me? What makes it even worse, what digs even deeper, he's proposing to Elizabeth in the building that Jack built. And Jack is leaning against the doors that he put in, completely defeated and shattered. Oh. And that's
I can't imagine
where it ends.
Like just seeing someone else propose to the woman you love
is bad enough.
Bad enough. But it's literally seconds before you were going to do the same thing.
In a building you built for her.
You built her. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh. Okay.
So tough, right?
Well, I would say, Hearties, that we're going to be leaving you on a cliffhanger, but we are kind of, because we're not going to be doing season 3 until the summer after season 9 has aired. But you know what happens. But
yeah, maybe, yeah.
It's hopefully a good thing.
We can find out. Hopefully we can try to do some research here. We can try to find out a little more about what went into this finale and what the original plan was. I'd like to know what they were originally going to do. It's very interesting to me that they came up with this later and they called Marcus from California to come back and film this. And quite honestly, it really was brilliant writing.
It was great writing. Really, and that would be a great question to ask. Oh, yeah. All right, Hearties.
I'm sorry, Charles. I loved you. Goodbye, Charles.
And on that note, we shall say goodbye. And we will see you for the recaps of season 9 starting next week. Bye, Hearties.